What do all the different cultures do, and how strong are they? That's what this video is going to be about. So what I'm going to be doing here is we're going to be going over every single thing about cultures. Now, I do have a previous video that was made months ago. I was significantly worse at the game, and it was made for previous patches. This is an updated cultural tier list. We're going to be describing every single thing in the... we're going to just go on everything on cultures. Their units, their buildings, their special effects, all of that. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to be doing a little bit of a tier list where I kind of rank them all generally and go over all of that. Now, in my last video, I didn't go over everything, and I left out a lot that could explain why some cultures were good, some cultures were maybe not so good. And I think if you get a better, fuller understanding of cultures and why, you know, some cultures have like a lot of things going on that aren't really that obvious, and some cultures kind of don't have a lot of things going on, and that kind of makes them a lot weaker. Now, when I do Age of Wonders 4 video, well, generally when I do any kind of video, I like going over everything in detail. You know, I really like video games, and I like going over every little bit of information. Age of Wonders 4, the community in particular is my favorite community to make videos for, because you guys really like watching my longer videos, and your guys' reactions to that have always been amazing. So I'm updating this for the Ogre Kings update. In the future, this will probably be obsoleted, but for now, this is an update for the Ogre Kings update, because a lot of things have changed. Feudal has been totally remade. They did some rebalancing on cultures, and, well, to be honest, my last video, I don't know if I mentioned this already, this intro is dragging on here, but in my last video, I didn't have like 100% understanding of the game. I would say I had like an 85%. Now I'm up to like a 95% understanding of the game, and there's definitely some things I left out of that last video that really can help you understand why some cultures do good, and why some cultures, despite on paper being good, just really aren't. Now, before I go any further, I don't think any culture in this game is actually unplayable. Even the worst culture in the game has won some multiplayer games through severe shenanigans. Every culture does have some shenanigans they can do, but it's kind of like limited. Some cultures will be good early, mid, late game. Some cultures will scale amazing late game. Some cultures will have like one trick they can do, and if that trick fails, they kind of fall off, right? Certainly affinity plays a lot into this. If the affinity empire track was rebalanced, then, you know, some cultures do really good because their affinity is good, and some cultures, you know, their affinity track just doesn't really give them any options early in the game. And that, you know, if they do ever update the empire affinity, which I think they said they would next expansion, I would definitely have to update this video again. Okay, so with all my videos, obviously, I'm going to go over a lot of information. So if you want to listen along, use me as a podcast, or, you know, put me on your TV, anything like that, that's all great. You don't have to actually watch here. I say this because the longer your view duration, the better YouTube algorithm likes me, so that's great. Make sure to leave a comment, like, subscribe, talk about any of this, ask me any questions. I always get this comment of like, oh, I'm not trying to be annoying, but could you? Well, you're never annoying, okay? And everyone thinks they're being annoying when they leave a comment or anything like that. You're not. You know, if I don't answer your question, somebody else will, so just feel free. Okay, so let's look at cultures. Cultures are made, let's look at this from a top-down level, of certain different effects. Cultures generally give units, they give buildings, they give powerful buffs. Some of them give different resources or things like that. Cultures aren't just the buffs and the units. The buildings do play into this a lot. This is one thing I left out of my last video. Some cultures do not have good buildings they can roll with, and some cultures have very good buildings they can roll with. So without further ado, let's start from the top. Feudal. Feudal, of course, has seen a massive rework since the last time I did my video. Not only has their economy improved dramatically, but their late game has improved dramatically. And their early game has also improved dramatically. Everything about Feudal has improved dramatically. I wouldn't say Feudal is breaking the game or anything, but I would say Feudal right now is a firm A tier. They're good, and they have so many different builds, and they have so many different things they can do with it. So I would say Feudal right now is just very, very good. So what is Feudal doing generally? Okay, so we got Feudal Monarchy. For the Monarch is outrageously powerful. Okay, any unit fighting alongside your ruler or fighting in your own domain gets 1 defense, 1 resistance, 10% damage, 10 morale. That applies to every unit. That applies to mythic units. That applies to everything. The mere fact that Feudal Monarchy can buff mythic units makes it very, very powerful. It also calls into question At a certain point, I actually think every culture at this stage should be able to put their cultural bonus onto mythic units. That would dramatically improve the diversity of the game, but that's just something for maybe a different video. But at any rate, Feudal Monarchy, Feudal Dragons has done outrageously good because you can apply this for the Monarch on Dragons. Dragons are already very high stat. For the Monarch, makes them quite strong. Feudal Aristocracy gets, oh boy, I will go over the units in a second. They can get, man, they can level up their units so quickly. Their tempo plays are incredible. Their economy is fantastic. Their ability to draft out units and tempo into tier 3 is outrageously good. Once again, I don't think Feudal is like overpowered or anything. That would be a different one. You probably guessed which one it is. But definitely, I think Feudal is quite strong. I think every culture at this point should be like on the Feudal tier, or at the very least near it, which most are at this point. I would say there's very few actual bad cultures in the game right now after the rework to Feudal, but you know, there's definitely some room for improvement. And again, you guys, Age of Wonders 4 is a huge, diverse video game. It's got a lot of things going on, so you know, never think, oh man, I gotta play this culture because they're S tier. Like, every culture can do fine. I would say previously in my previous video, Feudal was so bad that, you know, you can never do good with it. But as of right now, no, Feudal can, I would say pretty much every culture has some tricks they could do. So, okay, let's talk about the units then. Feudal Aristocracy, it's a bit complicated, but generally speaking, the units will heal more, have more HP, and have less upkeep. So both of these are outrageously good. For the Monarch, it's not actually listed here, but any unit in your ruler's army at the end of the turn has the entirety of its upkeep removed. This includes Imperium upkeep. So if you have these big mythic units in a For the Monarch army, if you put 5 mythic units in your king's army, all their Imperium cost is negated. That's really strong. So at any rate, let's talk about Feudal's units then. Some cultures, hypothetically, could be strong, but then have a very weak unit roster. Feudal is not one of those. Now, the Feudal Defender, I don't think it is the best straight up tier 1 unit in the game, because remember, Feudal doesn't really have a, I mean, they've got For the Monarch, which is definitely good. The Liege bonus is pretty good, but generally speaking, like when we compare this to like High with their +3 spirit damage, that's going to generally be better with the Awaken stuff and things like that. So Defender is going to be generally a generic unit. Now, my last video, I got this wrong. I said this improperly. Shield defense, so when I say armor, shield defense is already factored into their defense. So it's base 2, shield defense 3. So if you're being flanked, a shielded unit, a tier 1 shielded unit, only has 2 defense, 0 resist. Now, shielded units are quite good in the early game when most damage is going to be physical. So a tier 1 shielded unit is pretty much peak. That's your best time to have a shielded unit. Defender has no downsides. It's got average HP. It can be a mounted unit, which is very strong, as we'll see going forwards. And they level into a tier 3 Liege Guard. This means Defender is a unit that can you can make your entire build out of a Defender if you do Feudal Aristocracy. They are, even though a tier 1, I would say they're average, I would say they're an above average shield unit, they would potentially maybe be the best in the game right now. It's kind of hard to quantify. Obviously, I think the High unit is better. The High shield unit is better on, like, just like, here's tier 1, here we're doing early game fights. The High unit will be better in that situation. But as the game goes on, the Defender and his ability to level up into a Liege Guard, if he becomes elite, the Liege Guard, we'll go over in a second, he's just very, very strong. Okay, now Archer, this is for Feudal Monarchy. Now remember, if you're playing Feudal Aristocracy, the Defender can become a Liege Guard. If you're playing Feudal Monarchy, the Archer can become a Longbow. Now the problem in this is the Archer is one of the most average units to ever average. It's not bad, it's not good, it's just simply average. Bows in particular are suffering on this patch. Battle mages beat them up, stole their lunch money, and took their role from them. The longbow isn't even bad. It's just very, very average. Now, the archer at tier 1, he's 50 HP, 0 defense, 0 resist, very squishy, nothing special about him. He's got the ability to sunder defense, that's about it. Now, he does become longbow, or I should say she becomes longbow if you have a tier 3 town hall which is important. You need to have a tier 3 town hall before they'll promote. They don't just promote for free. You can't just tempo out like 12 Liege Guard and rush someone. You're not allowed to do that, okay? I mean, I guess you could if you played exactly for it, but you get my idea, right? So the longbow is a tier 3 unit. Now this promotes out of the archer, or you can build either of these out of your city once you do get your tier 3. So the archer, the longbow, he's pretty, I mean, he's not bad. The problem is they can't mount. They've only got 32 movement speed. Average stats is fine for an archer. Tier 3 archer, 82-2. These are fine. You know, it's a little bit squishy, but it's fine. It's about average for a tier 3 unit, at least a range unit. Longbow gives it +1 range. You can then combo that with the veterancy here and get a +1 range on that one as well. Because typically if you're playing Feudal, I mean, as you might have noticed, you can promote units. And we'll get into the knight later. So you definitely play a faction. When you play Feudal, you try to focus very much on veterancing your units, getting them lots of experience, right? So you'll probably have this ranged attack that brings you to +1 range, another +1 range. So the longbow can get pretty long ranged. The long shot is a base attack, so it has full scaling, and it has a 7 base range. Now it's 7 with the longbow effect, so it'll be 8 when veteran seed. Don't think it's 9. The longbow effect is already factored into this, right? So it's a very long range, automatic hit, can't be dodged attack, pretty good. So the downside is range units are not doing very good right now, as we've mentioned, and the longbow isn't really that great. So when we're looking at the differences between the two, Feudal Aristocracy can spam defenders. They upgrade into Liege Guard. They stay relevant the entire game. Very strong early game. Feudal Monarchy, on the other hand, they can also spam defenders, but they won't upgrade. So when Feudal Monarchy spams defenders, they're good in the early game for sure. Like, they're not a bad unit. They're above average shield unit, but they, you know, they're fine, I guess. I don't know a better way to put it. They're fine for Feudal Monarchy, but for Feudal Aristocracy, they're really good. Now, I have tried to do an archer build with Feudal Monarchy. It's fine. Feudal Monarchy does make your archers quite tanky, I think, because you're getting that 1 defense, 1 resistance already from the Feudal Monarchy. So already your longbows will be, compared to other factions archers, you know, reasonably tanky. You can double down with that with some other things. So definitely, it's not like these are bad. They're just very average. If I play Feudal Monarchy, I'd probably play around different units and use the For the Monarch buff. So the Liege Guard, on the other hand, you can play entirely around this dude. He will stay relevant until, I would say, the late game. All throughout the early and mid game, this dude is a tyrant of combat. He is very powerful. Now, shield units, once we get to tier 3, shield units do start falling off because defense starts falling off in favor of resistance. More and more units will start doing magic damage. But the thing is, the Liege Guard has 3 defense, +3 for the shield, but 4 resistance. He's one of the only shield units in the game with an actual amount of resistance. If we compare this, I'll go over it in the future. The Bastion is 2. The Liege Guard is 4. Plus the heavy shield, which is also on the defender. The heavy shield, any attack that is not flanking. So flanking attacks, ignore this, but if you're not flanking, you don't get it. It is 1 defense and 1 more resistance. So if you try to shoot this guy from the front, he has 5 resistance, in fact. The Bastion's got 2. So shield units generally stop being built around tier 3 unless you're doing a Giga Bastion build, which is falling off and not very strong right now. But the Liege Guard, on the other hand, he is a champion. He's got 100 HP, solid amount of HP, 14 damage, so a lot of shield units get penalized with low damage for some reason, but he doesn't. He can also be a cavalry. This guy is, like, on paper, he's like the beatiest beat stick shield unit. It is hard to beat the Liege Guard from the front unless you out tier him or you bring in shock units. He's just a beefy boy. I don't know any other way to put it. Trying to fight this guy, especially if you've taken a racial trait to mount, he's very fast, he can clear the battlefield, and then his ability here is Sworn Bond. He can link to any hero unit, and that hero unit, here's Kitty, will, instead of taking damage, 25% of that damage will be transferred to the Liege Guard, and every turn the linked unit gets a stack of Strengthened. So this unit can keep your lord alive against basically anything. I mean, with how tanky this guy is, think about him being linked to your lord with a 25% damage reduction. So that's quite strong. In the late game in particular, it can often be a great strategy to rush down the opposing lord, spamming a lot of spells or, you know, things like that to take them out. But it's almost impossible to take out Feudal Aristocracy's lord because the Liege Guard will just tank through it all. So this unit is like A tier. I'm not gonna go S tier, but he's like, oh my god, he's like really good. And here's the thing, because remember, I have optional cavalry here. Now, do remember I'm talking about Feudal Aristocracy for this. Feudal Monarchy, for the Monarch buff is like just this generically huge, very strong buff. So the longbow is not too great, but that for the Monarch buff is outrageous and allows you to do like basically any build with Feudal Monarchy, right? So I'm just, we're talking about why Feudal Aristocracy, you know, if Feudal Monarchy is this crazy, crazy, crazy strong buff, how is Feudal Aristocracy just as good? Well, let's talk about the last unit then. Well, okay, well, the second to last unit. Okay, fine, let's talk about the Bannerman. Bannerman was also buffed recently. They get more HP, they're a bit tankier, and they can be a cavalry. In addition, the Bannerman on he can use it every other turn, can heal 25 and give a unit of morale, and he can use this even if an enemy is engaged with melee, and he enters defense mode after using it, which activates defense mode warding, giving everyone around him status resist and resistance, and this unit has War Banner. All adjacent friendly units get 1 defense and 1 resistance. The Bannerman is one of the only supports in the game that scales very well into the late game, and you can generally just keep in your army forever without any issues. So, Bannerman, Liege Guard, there's a very strong tier 3 tempo play, especially because you could be veterancing up these defenders, and then they'll just upgrade to Liege Guard once you get your Town Hall to tier 3. So this can take other players out of the game. Maybe it doesn't scale to hyper late game, but it's a very, very, very strong tempo play. Bannermen, obviously they're going to fall off a bit in the late game, like every support unit, but just the War Banner effect and Soothing Standard effect does mean that maybe having 1 or 2, you got 3 armies in a battle, having 1 or 2 extra Bannermen is, quite good. So this takes us to the Aspirant Knight. Now, the Aspirant Knight himself doesn't look that outrageous. Like most Feudal units, he's just a brick house of stats. I don't know how better to put it. Feudal's roster is just a brick house. They don't try to do any tricks. They don't try to do any special funniness. They just run up and they beat you to death. So the Aspirant Knight is also one of these units. Now, he's a tier 2 unit. So for tier 2, he's got the, not the greatest stats. 70 HP, 2 defense, 2 resist. I mean, it's fine, but, nothing special, just average. For a shock unit, this could be fine. It could also be seen as a bit squishy. Now, his thing is he does a lot of damage. Far more damage than any tier 2 unit. But if the target he's trying to hit is adjacent to another ally, he gets -6 damage on that attack. So the Aspirant Knight does far above average damage if the enemy is isolated. If the enemy is not isolated, he just becomes a vanilla unit. Now, the advantage here is slippery. This unit does not trigger opportunity attack. Now, this is kind of why I waited a bit to make a cultural update on this. I do believe, oh boy, yes, I do believe the devs did make some changes. I actually need to look this up just to be absolutely sure. I do believe they made a change, or they were talking about making a change at the very least, where if a unit was engaged with another unit, that it could not flank it on the same turn. I'm not seeing that. Maybe they didn't implement it. At either rate, they were looking into a few things, but the general idea here is Aspirant Knight can walk out of engagement, not trigger the opportunity attack, walk behind an enemy on that turn, bam, flanking attack, huge damage. So Aspirant Knight with the slippery, he's just hard to deal with. He's mounted, he's very, very, very fast. He's a decent unit, but you might notice he's got Aspirant Knight. Feudal, and this, both Monarchy and Aristocracy can do this. So with Monarchy and Aristocracy can do the Aspirant Knight into the Knight. The Knight is a tier 4 cultural unit. Now, you cannot build this in your Town Hall, but you can upgrade your Aspirant Knights into Knights. I realize I've spent a lot of time here talking about Feudal. We need to go over why they're so strong right now. Anyway, this Knight is very strong. Now, obviously, you have to upgrade an aspirant knight into them. So as we get later and later into the game, if knights start dying, they're, you know, hard to replace. I mean, they're knights, right? But the knight is outrageously strong. As a tier 4 cultural unit, you don't need a tome or anything for. You do need a tier 4 town hall, so it's not something you can like tempo into unless you're really trying, right? But this unit, 110 HP, 4 defense, 4 resist, 31 damage, graceful charge, inspiring killer, and slippery. This unit is very, very, very strong. He's hard to deal with. He's quite fast. He can't be locked down into combat. He's just, wow, he's strong. Now, of course, you have to play aspirant knights and you have to upgrade them into knights, but should you do that, you get a very powerful unit. Now, of course, all these units combined do give Feudal a very diverse and very powerful roster. Okay. What other effects does Feudal have? Now, Feudal aristocracy, this is kind of what helps it scale up a little bit to keep up with monarchy. For each level of renown the governor has, this is their unique building at tier 3. For each level of renown the governor has, the city gains 10 food, 10 draft, 5 stability. This means if you have 4 renown on your hero, which won't be on every hero, but for at least your main 2 cities, you'll be able to get 40 draft, 40 food, and 20 stability under that city. It's a pretty good building. I would say this is significantly better than, for example, Primal's building at any rate. But yeah, this building is very good. It allows Feudal aristocracy to continue to get gobs of draft, to continue to produce lots of units. Quite good. Now, the other side of this is the Retainer's Estate for Feudal Monarchy. While the city shares a border with the Throne City, or is the Throne City, it gets 20 food, 10 gold, and 10 stability, which is really, really, really horribly underpowered to the point where I would only build this building as a joke. I don't really understand it, and it's just really bad. Okay, so I believe that's about all the different hidden bonuses. Oh, no. Actually, there are a few more hidden bonuses. Oh, boy. You know, I need a... there's unique buildings that Feudal gets. You know, if I actually try to... I won't remember all these names off the top of my head, so it might be a bit difficult to go over them all. I will be honest. Let me see if there's a list here I could quick look up. There is a list, and it is hard to get. Okay, so the militia barracks. This is for Feudal Monarchy. Feudal Monarchy gets a militia barracks. Okay. Now, this is a building that... this is for... No. Why am I thinking this? Oh my god, this is why it's complicated. No. Here we go. Oh, good. I am screwing everything up, aren't I? Is it militia barracks? It is. No, it is. No, I'm like... Okay, I'm trying to go back. Militia barracks. Okay. So instead of production and draft, this is your production building, right? So instead of production and draft, you get production, draft, and stability. The stability is free. So it's pretty good for Feudal Monarchy. Now that upgrades into the Royal Smith, which, as you might imagine, instead of draft and starting ranked all tier 1 units, is draft, starting ranked all tier 1 units, and city stability. Between these two buildings, if you should build them, Feudal Monarchy just gets 15 stability. Well, I mean, it's not free. It's like their cultural bonus. But, I mean, yeah, I mean, they just get 15 stability, right? Now, the opposite side is Feudal Aristocracy, which gets, instead of just 10 food, they get 10 food and 5 draft. The second version of this building, instead of just giving 20 food, is 20 food and 10 draft. So Feudal Aristocracy just gets 15 draft. This is quite powerful. They're not giving anything up for it, and they just get that. That's their cultural bonus. So Feudal Aristocracy can be doing food buildings and keeping up with draft. Feudal Monarchy can be doing draft buildings and keeping up with stability. This gives them a lot more options and things they can do, and there's no downsides. Other cultures might pay something or have a downside for their unique buildings. Feudal doesn't. So I think that about wraps up Feudal. Okay. Well, I should say the last little detail, if you want to look at it like that, is their province improvement, farmstead. It's okay. I mean, it's a food building. It's not exactly great. It gives you 15 food plus 5 per adjacent farm. It's fine. Both of them get the farmstead. It's not bad. As for spells, They both get called to glory, which is good. They both get called militia, which is pretty good. You can summon units with gold, but you summon militia, which are really bad. I would say called militia is something worth talking about. Otherwise, their spells aren't really anything to call home about. You might use call militia a couple times per game just to set up a city or maybe to set up your early game. Other than that, the farmstead and the spells, they're pretty unremarkable. There's not really much to go on there. Now for high. Now, talking about high, we need to talk about why they are so good. Why is high so good? Okay. This will take less time to go into than feudal, I assure you. So high is so good because they have the sunshine. Now, research posts, special province and movements are quite powerful. Once you have a Scholars Guild, every research post is a premium because it's giving you 10 additional knowledge for the Scholars Guild. And it helps you set up your city so you never get RNG locked out of having any research post in that city in the early game. The sunshine is just good. For getting this on every city, it's just really good. High will never have knowledge issues. It's very, 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 very strong. Okay. High also has the alignment agenda. If high goes neutral, they get 10 food, 10 production in every city. So neutral high is very strong, very meta. It's just really good. The higher your city stability is, the more food and production you get. But even if you stay at like average stability, you're just going to get, I mean, 10 food, 10 production in the early game is a, good sum. So all these high cities are just going to be strong. So these high cities are going to have slightly more population, slightly more buildings produced, and then they're going to have the sunshine. This alone right here is a lot of what makes high good. And I want to say that now, because if we go into the other things, you just have to notice high is really good because these two things are just really good. They just get a lot of power in the early game. Now, their spells are fine. Once again, the healing can be okay. Warden Blessing, heal 20, get 2 bolstered resistance. It's decent for the early game. Otherwise, not really that remarkable. Obviously, it doesn't like scale into late game or anything like that, but it's fine. I mean, it's better than the feudal ones. Call Militia is interesting, I suppose, but so far we're not really getting anything. So high's just really good for that. So then, what does high do on their unit? Okay, so I don't want to go into feudal. I don't know when I went into mystic. There we go. Okay. High's cultural bonus is this dormant thing. Each unit has a dormant effect. Once a unit is awakened, it gets buffed. So why did I call the Dawn Defender the best unit? Because it has awakened Shield of Light. When this unit is awakened, it gets +1 defense and +2. Once it's +1 defense and 2 resistance, it should be +2 resistance. Anyway, once a Dawn Defender is awakened, that gives it 6 defense from the front and 2 resistance, making it even tankier, yes, than the Defender. It then also gets 5 more HP. It just does. And even if you flank him, he continues to get these Dormant Awakening effects. So with his 5 extra HP and the Dormant Awakening, he's just a really tanky tier 1 shield unit. He's just really, really effective. You can use Dawn Defenders throughout the early game. They will generally never die in any battles. They're really good for early expansion. Dusk Hunters, they're just a generic archer unit. They're not exactly particularly good or anything. They're, in fact, I mean, once your early game ones die, if they do die, I'd probably build no more. Dawn Defenders are pretty much your ideal. They, when awakened, get more range. Otherwise, it's not really remarkable. He can't mount. He can't do anything special. There's nothing really to talk about here. Sun Priest is their healer. He has a free action Twin Awakening, which allows you to awaken a unit and a unit next to them. That's pretty good. Then he can awaken another unit by healing them. Now this does have a cooldown of 2, so you have to spend 2 turns not healing, which can suck. That's not exactly great. His basic attack is no special effects, so it will definitely get outscaled. Like he has to spend 2 turns just kind of weirdly attacking before he gets to do the mending. So he is good for awakening your army, but realistically speaking, he is one of the supports who you probably will stop building in the late game. You might have a couple just to awaken units. That's about it. Daylight Spear is a pretty good spear unit. Now, I did mention tier 2 units have about 70 HP. He's got 75, which ironically is the same as a Dawn Defender, but he does get much better stats. With 3 resistance, that's quite good. 3 defense, this unit's a pretty tanky spear line unit. He's got First Strike, Dormant Guardian. When he's awakened, he gets another retaliation. So attacking into him is tough. He's got 14 damage. You know, he's a spearman, so he's got the charge resistance, anti-large, stuff like that. Not exactly a special unit. High is also kind of, let's say their units just beat you a lot. They just, you know, Dawn Defenders just tank you to death. Daylight Spears just stat stick you to death. But, you know, there's nothing bad here about this, right? Like, the roster so far is perfectly fine. So, the Awakener, on the other hand, now, all the other units were, you know, fighters, physical, let's say, units other than the Mage. But the Awakener is a tier 3 Battle Mage. Now, their basic attack doesn't do anything special, but the Exposing Light does. This is their Battle Mage AoE ability. So, all enemy units in a 1 hex radius get Sundered Defense, Sundered Resistance automatically. So, 22 spirit damage makes that pretty good. It's kind of hard to... Well, I mean, you just automatically get debuffed, you know, it's a pretty good AoE. On paper, not exactly doing anything outrageously different. It can mount, which does make it a bit better, because it can move around a bit better in battles, do stuff like that. Other than that, it's just a solid battle mage. There's nothing bad about it. If it does get awakened, its base attacks can distract, which is okay, I guess. And then it has the ability to awaken allies as a free action. They can awaken a unit for 3 turns on a 1-turn cooldown. So every 2 turns, it can awaken a unit for 3 turns. Awakeners are, well, they're good at awakening people. Shocking, I know. Overall, the high roster has no flaws. There's no weaknesses here. Now, you might be wondering why I keep going over the roster. Once we get to other cultures, it'll be kind of obvious when cultures do not have a good roster. Because Feudal roster, solid. High roster, solid. As we go down the list, you might start going, oh, huh? Oh, what's happening here? So let's talk about High's buildings. They, of course, get the Artisan Workshop. Instead of getting draft and production, they get draft, production, and stability. Unlike Feudal Monarchy, they give up 2 production for their stability. This upgrades to the Light Forge, where they give up 5 draft to get 5 gold. So unlike Feudal Monarchy, they are paying. Their buildings aren't like they're not like an actual just direct upgrade. They are kind of like a side grade, particularly the Light Forge is a side grade. You're giving up draft for gold, which can be good or bad depending how you look at it. At other rate, their buildings, again, as I mentioned earlier, these aren't really what makes them strong or anything. They're there, I guess. I don't really know a better way to put it. They're there. And that's about it. Now, of course, their unique building, once they have a tier 3 town hall. Sorry, I have to like look at my other monitor because I don't know every single building's name off the top of my head, right? Once we're at their tier 3 building, they can get 5 city stability per research post, 5 city stability per conduit. And unlike most other tier 3 buildings, well, most tier 3 buildings for each culture cost 450. So I should say theirs is average. The feudal ones cost above average. I should specify that. The feudal ones cost 750 production. These ones on average only cost 450. So it is a good amount of stability. High cities, I mean, if you've got, let's say 7, that's 35 stability. It's a lot of production in gold for some stability, but it does, if you're trying to stay neutral high instead of going evil high, this can help you keep your stability up so you can, you know, get more of that bonuses from neutral. I would say the meta is either stay neutral and then flip into evil late game, or just stay neutral old game. Good high is ironically not actually that good. So Solar Nexus, it's okay. It's nothing remarkable. But when we look at high, you know, what are we talking about? What's good about this? Again, it's just the alignment agenda, the solid roster, and the Sunwell Special Province Improvement. It's kind of basic, but this faction is like A tier just because, again, solid roster, solid early game, solid ability to scale into the late game. Very, 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 very strong. Okay, this takes us to Oathsworn. Now, Oathsworn, I did mention we'd eventually get into a bad unit roster. Oathsworn doesn't really have a bad unit roster. Now, we do have the Sworn Guard at tier 1. I'm going to go over their roster, and then we'll go over each individual one later, and that'll probably explain some things. But Sworn Guard, oh, I need to look up one thing real quick. No, okay. Okay, Sworn Guard is 70 defense, 2 defense. Let's say 70 HP, 2 defense, 1 resist. It's an average tier 1 spearman, average 12 damage. Most shield units will have below average damage. Some will have really below average damage. Average for tier 1 is actually about 10 damage, so 12 makes this pretty decent. You can also sunder defense. So far as tier 1 spear units go, this one is actually pretty good. I will say that. Lots of effects and things like that going on. It's just, Sworn Guard's a pretty good unit. There's really no, I would say, downside to them, other than they're not the Honor Blade. I would say most people are just going to go with the Honor Blade. Despite having +2 upkeep, the Honor Blade is a tier 1 fighter unit that, well, he just tends to do better. Now, he can be mounted. Optional cavalry is quite strong, as I have mentioned to a lot of people. Optional cavalry is quite strong, so he can mount, he can move really quick, and then he has defensive strike. Defensive strike, you do a lot of damage for a tier 1 unit, and then you end your turn in defense mode. This allows you to engage into a fight, and when enemies try to hit back against you, they're obviously hitting into defense mode and doing substantially reduced damage. Honor Blades are very effective early game for clearing the map, and should you happen to end up in a fight, a high veterancy Honor Blade does pretty good as well. Now, there are the Seal Bearers. These are a battle mage unit. Each of the different cultures, subcultures for Oathsworn, which I'll get into in a second. I just want to go over their roster first because I think that helps a lot. Each of the different subcultures have their own different version of them. Overall, I would say I haven't really experimented with them enough, to be honest. Each of them have a spam attack. It's just a 12 damage spam attack. The damage type depends on the one, and then what they do changes. So the one for Harmony, you have a 6 range automatic hit, 30 damage, pretty decent damage. And then every time that unit is attacked again, it takes 4 blight damage, doubled for single targets. That's not too bad. Righteousness has transferred seal, same thing, 30 range, or sorry, 6 range, 30 damage, seal of transference. Every time that unit is attacked, your units heal for 5, doubled for single shots. And then Strife, this one does less damage, but inflicts Seal of Fire. At the start of that unit's turn, it takes 10 fire damage, and then if it dies, it explodes, dealing 20 fire damage to everyone around it. Overall, they're a tier 2 battle mage, which allows Oathsworn to do a battle mage build. Because they can start getting battle mages out, maybe at tier 2, which is a bit, easier than getting them out at tier 3, right? But this allows you to do a battle mage build a bit more rapidly and then focus on going from tier 2 battle mages to tier 4, which is certainly a strategy. I'm not sure it's the greatest one, but it certainly is one. Otherwise, I wouldn't say Oathsworn has ever really focused too much on their battle mages, to be honest. Their healer is probably the best outright healer in the game. It can be a cavalry, outrageously good. Its Purging Blast is a bit below damage, but it automatically removes a buff from an enemy, which is pretty strong. To just not, you can't even resist that. On a 2-turn cooldown, you can full cleanse an ally, and then it gets 3 status protection. A full cleanse is quite strong, and having this on a unit on that low of a cooldown makes it quite hard to sneak debuffs, stuns, things like that into Oathsworn. And every subculture gets this one. There's no like special difference here, right? So then we've got the Vow of Healing. This is a 3-turn, or you can use it every 3 turns, cooldown 2. So use it, cooldown, use it, right? Heals for 25 in an AoE. Now this means that Oathsworn can proc every buff they've given their supports in an AoE just on their tier 2 support unit. That's really strong. This makes the Vow Keeper just straight up the best cultural healer, period. Really strong. Okay, then each different subculture gets a different unit, which will, of course, go into how we balances. How we talk about their strength, right? Peacebringer is the Harmony one, and it is, well, it's nerfed into the ground. I'm not really sure. I don't really want to spend that much more time on it. It's a tier 3 archer. It is mounted by default, which is good. It's very long range, but line shot got nerfed really hard a while back. I don't think much of Peacebringer. I'm not going to spend much time on it. There's not much to talk about. It's pretty unremarkable. With line shot being nerfed that much, yeah. Warbound is there's Warbound and Avenger, which are for Oathsworn, Strife, and Righteousness. There we go. Strife gets the Warbound, Righteousness gets the Avenger. They're both shock units. They're both pretty good. Warbound does a bit more flame damage on his, well, I should say fire damage on his charge attack. Avenger just hits hard. Warbound is very, very mobile, being able to charge forward into a charge strike, giving him a lot of range and mobility, because remember, they can't mount. Avenger, on the other hand, he can't mount, but his whole shtick is if an enemy ends their turn in melee range of him, he can do the Helm Splitter, which is an outrageously mega, ultra, super, just giga crush move. It does 50 damage, and his base, and his single shot, and his melee, so it gets every buff you can give to it, and then it pierces 50% of all defense and resist. Very strong. This one. So we've got a mobile shock unit at tier 3, and we've got a not so mobile, but good crushing other melee units on the Avenger. Now, once they do get, where is it? Once you get the Paragon level of your devotion, which I can do in a second, this unit gets Infernal Blaze, does a bit of damage to enemies around him, then he gets Infernal Might to deal more damage. It's okay, but I would say generally use this before a fight, not after a fight. Using it in the middle of a battle is not, like, once you're actually engaged with enemies, it's not really that great, but you can use it before an engagement to kind of build up Infernal Might. The Avenger gets, now this did get nerfed, which does make it far less appealing. They get Radiant Slash. Now this is a melee magic, but it's not single shot. It's not base, so it doesn't scale at all. Enemy units had 2 hex long, 1 hex wide line, sustain damage, and get sundered resistance. It's used to blind, which gave it outrageously good synergy. As of now, it's not. I would say the Avenger was like really good, and now he's fine. He's decent at what he does, but he gets outscaled, and with all the nerfs he's gotten, he's fine. That's about it. Okay, so then what do the different cultures do? Okay, Harmony, as we said earlier, is bad. They're not like unplayable. Oathsworn is a culture is pretty decent, but Harmony, boy, it's rough because basically, oh boy. Okay, so Oath of Harmony. Okay. You have to, you gain devotion by having a city or vassal of another race, clearing an infestation or ancient wonder, making a truce, or forgiving a grievance. You lose devotion by starting a war, raising or migrating, or fabricating a grievance. Harmony can't do war. This is very, very, very limiting. Their power is very limited. It also makes it really annoying. I mean, you can clear wonders and you can clear infestations to build up devotion, but if you ever declare war, you lose it all. So what is your power? Like, what do you get for building up all this devotion? Basically, your units will heal when they go below a certain amount of HP. Did they not actually say it? Okay, here we go. So basically, the more devotion you've built up through being a good boy, if you're a really good boy, the first time in a combat a unit goes below 60% health, they get a heal. It's okay. Like, it's decent at keeping your archers alive so they don't get burst down. And it can be annoying when your entire army is healing 30 every time they get low. You know, it kind of makes them really tanky and difficult to deal with. But other than that, it's not really that amazing. It's hard to, well, I shouldn't say hard, but it's annoying to build up, very limiting to build up. And now they're tier 3 units, not really that great anyway. So reasonably, it's still Oathsworn, so it's still got the great support unit. It's still got the great early game. But overall, I'm not really wowed by Harmony. They're fine, but whatever. Now, Righteousness is a bit more... It's also restricting, but it's less restricting. But their buff is way, way better. Okay. Here we go. Righteousness, the more of a good boy you are, the more spirit damage your units get. In neutral, you get 2. And if you're the goodiest good boy ever, if you're a perfect good faction, you get 5 spirit damage on everything. All your attacks get more. Increase your single shot. That's really strong. That's really, really, really strong. That's a lot of damage to just get for free on your entire faction forever, should you be a good boy. And Righteousness does get some events that allow you to get more good boy points. What is the downside? Building this up, negative alignment gained is doubled, so you basically can never do anything ever negative. Unlike other factions that might be able to take like a -5 here or there if they're trying to go very good, Righteousness, a -5 becomes a -10, which slows you down going very good considerably. Now you do get this huge buff, right? But it can be difficult to get. So you gotta build up your good boy points. Can't be evil, but you got to be perfectly good the whole time, and then you get really big buffs. So Righteousness, you can kind of swap this in any build. You could do like Battle Mage Righteousness, you could do Shock Units Righteousness, you could do anything Righteousness, so long as it's not Mythic, because Mythic units, I don't believe Mythic units can get their buff. I don't think you can put that buff on them. Strife, on the other hand, is kind of the same way, but different. Now, raising and pillaging provinces gives them Imperium, and all their culture units have Warrior Soul. Warrior Soul is the same thing, but for being bad. Now, you don't go perfect evil and get Warrior Soul. You have to do different things. You have to enter war, rage cities, not let enemies rout in combat. You have to beat enemies in combat, taking more fights. If you ever enter a truce, that's bad. If you ever enter defensive pact, that's bad. Enter alliance, your entire faction hates you. You can't vassalize anything, and you can't lose your own cities. But let's say you just win lots of battles, expand around the map, declare war on everyone you see, raise cities, you get the very, very powerful, then, Warrior Soul, which does the same thing Righteousness does, but fire damage. Once again, at Paragon, you get 5 fire damage, which is really, really strong. This allows Strife to do lots of different builds, and of course, means they do a lot of damage. Now, Righteousness just builds up good boy points throughout the game, and Strife just declares war and takes lots of fights. Both of these will basically passively eventually get to their +5 damage, and both of them are quite strong at that +5 damage. So Righteousness and Strife, just very, very strong. But I would say because Strife, raising cities and pillaging, takes -1 turn and yields Imperium, that's just strong. I'm not sure what to say about that one. That's just like a free buff they get for no reason that takes them from being good to like, wow, that's kind of really actually strong. Why is that so overpowered? Like Righteousness gets a debuff, Strife gets a buff. Kind of odd. I guess Strife has to declare war on people, but I mean, it is a game about declaring war on people, so, okay. Barbarian, oh boy. So it's one of the older factions. They haven't gotten a rework, but they were one of the more complicated factions. Well, I should say they did get a slight rework with Savage Strike. So all Barbarian units that you've put their cultural buff on, whenever it crits, it deals 4 blight damage, doubled to 8 if it's a single shot. So Barbarians really love to crit. Every Barbarian unit just does more flat damage when critting. Of course, this does mean that eventually, for example, Oathsworn will deal more damage on every attack and deal even more damage on a crit, because Oathsworn, when a single shot, would deal 10 damage at max, then it would crit, so it would deal 15 damage, and Barbarians are still doing 8 damage. So Barbarians are obviously more of an early game focused faction, focused on building up crit and taking lots of fights in the early game, and well, that's about it. Now, there are things to go into, because Barbarian has a lot of strengths that people don't really know. They do have the Ritual of Alacrity. Now, the Ritual of Alacrity allows the Barbarians, when they're on an outpost or a city, to activate it. They heal all units in that army by 50% and then restore all their move points. And if they're exhausted from being in Forced March, they get that exhausted removed. That means Forced March's Barbarian is like Giga S. Yes, it's quite broken. At any rate, if we're not using Forced Marchers Barbarians, and I think this is something to talk about real quick here. One of their things is their tier 3 building is Shrine of the War God. Units built in this city get +2 physical damage on non-magic attacks, increased for single shots. That's very strong. So even though Barbarian doesn't scale their crit damage, they do get some, you know, help here for the units produced in the city. So eventually, Barbarians, I'm not saying they're going to keep up with Oathsworn, but the gap won't be so wide, maybe. And a lot of people forget about this one. And then that, you know, it's just helpful. It's one of Barbarian's effects that helps them keep up. And I'm kind of just mentioning their strengths right now. Oh, I should mention one little last thing. Of course, we should go over the Oathsworn effects and buildings. I forgot, Oathsworn actually does have good stuff. So Oathsworn Righteousness has Devout Radiance. Enemies in 1 hex radius sustain 10 devotion damage. Damage changes based on your devotion level. This is an early game AoE nuke that starts pretty strong. You know, 10 damage AoE, but eventually scales, I think, up to 30 damage AoE. So this is a tier 1 spell that you get. It just scales forever. It's just really strong. Counter Stance is a spell that, for a mere 5 mana, 10 combat casting, every unit 1 hex radius gets first strike and extra retaliation, and enters defense stance at the end of their turn. Once again, yeah, that's pretty strong too. Both these spells scale throughout the entire game. Even once we reach late game battles, if you just want to spam a low cost, high damage nuke, Devout Radiance is quite good. If you've got an engagement where you need to enter defensive stance, you've got counter stance, which is, well, you might not imagine this, pretty good. Also, in Righteousness just has 2 good spells, right? Now, they do a special province improvement that you probably won't build or notice. It's a conduit, it gives mana, it gives draft. It's okay, draft is fine. Oathsworn Strife, of course, we need to talk to the School of Mastery. It's another conduit that gives mana and draft, so it's like whatever, but whatever. Units produced in the city start with +1 starting rank. That's really, really strong, especially after the nerf to starting rank that everybody got. School of Mastery is quite good. So that's really, really strong. And then, of course, they get Devout Radiance and Counter Stance. Oathsworn Harmony gets the School of Contemplation. It's a conduit that gives mana and knowledge, and then knowledge per adjacent conduit or research post. It's probably the best one. No, okay, Oathsworn's Strifes is the best, then Harmony, then Righteousness. So Righteousness, I mean, they got these things. Overall, they lose out. We're kind of explaining why Strife is just doing so much better. We're kind of going to why Strife is just so much better than Righteousness right now. Now, they do have these, the Oathsworn buildings, they're not really worth anything. They're not really remarkable. Their barracks give draft and gold. It's not even worth really talking about. It's so irrelevant to their overall power level that it's just not even worth going over. So let's finish up Barbarian then. Okay, so Barbarian, they're not really that complicated. You know, there's not really that much to go over here. So let's just finish up. I'm blind, obviously. So their special building is a Forest of Snakes. It's a forester that gives more food, more production, and then draft per adjacent forester. It's okay, not. It's whatever. It's nothing remarkable. Friendly units 1 hex radius get 3 fortune. Once again, it's okay, not remarkable, but fine. For 3 turns, target friendly unit gets berserk, 3 strengthen. Once again, it's okay, not remarkable. Overall, with Barbarian, I mean, what's their strength? Savage Strikes is good in the early game. Ritual of Alacrity is insanely good. Shrine to the War God helps you scale throughout the late game. But, of course, we need to talk about the downside of Barbarians. What is the downside of Barbarians? That would be the Battle Ritual Site and the Ancestral Seer Hall. These kinda can suck. So, this one is giving up 2 knowledge for 5 draft. The Ancestral Seer Hall is giving up 5 knowledge for 10 draft. Now, that's not that much in total. It's only 7 knowledge per city. It's not going to break your run, but it does kind of suck, especially if you don't really need draft right now. It's not like an overall nerf to the faction, but it's not particularly a buff either. It's like a decent side grade. But we talked about why Barbarians are good. I mean, they're fine. I would say they're getting power scaled, power creeped a little bit. But why are they then doing good? Okay. So first off, their scout can build outposts. So your scout can set up outposts ahead of your army that you can then Ritual of Alacrity on, allowing you to do a lot of early game expansion, allowing you to take a lot of early game fights, and allowing you to do a lot of movement. That's just quite strong right there. Their tier 1 roster includes a warrior. Now, tier 1 shield units are always premium, but the warrior in particular is a quite annoying ability that a lot of people get frustrated by, Shield Bash. He has a 90% chance to stun an enemy unit and then enter defense mode. This allows him to run up to an enemy, well, he stuns them and then enters defense mode, right? Like, he's tanky, he's hard to get off the front line, he's just stunned your frontliner, and the next turn he gets to triple attack, which, if he's got some crit or anything like that, Savage Strike can allow him to do a lot of damage. He's just a very strong tier 1 shield unit. It's hard, on paper, Shield Bash doesn't look that frustrating, but I assure you, in reality, it can be quite difficult to deal with. It's one of those things where it's like, oh, that's not so bad, and then you fight against it and you're like, oh, that's quite annoying, I don't like this at all. Their other tier 1 unit is the Sunderer. Is a tier 1 skirmisher. We haven't seen skirmishers listed here before. So skirmishers like to throw ranged attacks. So every turn it can throw a javelin, or in melee, it's got a decent melee attack. Now, the throw a javelin has a 90... Oh no, it just automatically inflicts Sunder defense. So it's not a high damage range attack, but it can move and then throw it, getting in flanking attacks or things like that. It got Sunder defense, reducing their armor, allowing you to, just do more damage with your melee or things like that. Generally just a frustrating unit for enemies to deal by. Other than that, though, not really blowing my mind, not really that amazing. That's all I have to say. It's fine. Now, the War Shaman, he did get nerfed a lot, and I think they could maybe unnerf him. He has cooldown 3 on Invigorate, so once every 4 turns, he can, with a full action and at a mere 4 range, give every unit in 1 hex radius 10 health, a strengthened, and a regeneration. Now, that is a strong effect, but look at the cooldown, look at the cost, look at the immobility, because he can't move around while doing that. So, as a support unit goes, he's fine, but not really good. His basic attack is a 90% chance to inflict poisoned, which in the early game, before we're starting to like eliminate a unit every turn, just being able to poison enemies can be annoying. Can make him actually do not a lot of damage, but like, let's say he can do more damage than you'd suspect throughout a fight, just being annoying. The Fury, this is their tier 2 archer. It is it can be a cavalry. So it's got frenzy. Every time it attacks, it gets a stack of strengthened. It can get up to 50% more damage. So it can get up to shoot bow, doing 15 damage. What's the downside? It does 2 less damage by default than other tier 2 archers. So the Fury's fine, but it's not exactly blowing my mind once again. For the most part, Barbarian's probably going to play Warriors. Warrior spam. That's it. Tier 3 units, the Barbarian Berserker. Now, you might be noticing compared to the other tier 3 shock units, this one's looking really weak. And yes, it is not scaling the best. It certainly does fall off compared to a lot of other shock units. It's not great. It's fine, but it's actually not fine. I would say it's actually kind of underpowered right now by a bit. It can't mount. It has no mobility. Unlike the Avenger, it doesn't have like giga mega damage. Unlike the Warbound, it doesn't have mobility. It lacks the ability to get into range. It's just doesn't even do that much damage. Now, it does have Frenzy, and Frenzy did get buffs recently, so Frenzy gets doubled on single shot, so he builds it twice as quickly. That is a buff that does help him out. So the first attack, he gets 2 Frenzies. Second attack, he does 20% more damage instead of 10%. Overall, it's like a decent buff, but I would still call the Barbarian Berserker meh. He's just meh. His big defining feature here is Berserker's Rage. When its hit points reaches 33% or lower, it becomes Berserk and Steadfast. So it can never be killed in 1 turn, and for that 1 turn, it's Berserk. A lot of people forget all the effects of Berserk. When you are Berserk, you will instantly run towards the closest enemy and beat the crap out of them. But if no enemy is in range, it will just attack its allies. Shockingly, this happens more than you'd think on a very immobile unit. It can't be moraled out, and this is important, damage penalty from casualties are negated. So even if it has 1 unit remaining, it does full damage. That's very strong, and a lot of people forget the damage penalties from casualties are negated. And I've seen this a few times, despite the unit not being that strong. I have seen some people like totally disregard it because they're like, that's a weak unit, I shouldn't pay any attention to it. And then they'll have a 1 health Barbarian Berserker suddenly hits you for like 60 damage, and you're like, oh, all his casualty penalty is negated. So overall for Barbarian, I'm gonna say it, they're good. I would say they're good. They're like totally fine. In fact, they're totally average. Good players can do much better on them than bad players. Ritual of Alacrity, you need to know how to do. They're totally good. I would say they're totally fine. They're starting to get a little bit power creep by now for sure. And the Barbarian Berserker being their tier 3 unit is not doing them any favors, as well as Chaos just generally not being a strong alignment right now. Now, for Primal, unless I otherwise specify something for Primal, I'm just gonna call Primal overall a bit weak right now, but there are some Primals that are doing quite good due to how they spawn on the map. Okay, so the first thing we need to know about Primal, each of these different Primals spawn in a different location. So for example, Mire Crocodile likes to spawn in swamps, Stormcrow spawns in grasslands, Glacial Mammoth spawns in the snowy north, this spawns in desolate, desert, underground, and would even spawn in forest. So these do change actually a lot of their powers, changes their starting position, and it does, if you build for it, gives them a strong benefit. So for example, Glacial Mammoth, who I would call the strongest Primal overall, has a very powerful bonus that they will always start in the snow. They'll always start in the cold north, right? They get 3 production per snow province, which is definitely one of the better bonuses in here. I think it might actually be the best one. Well, Tunneling Spitle's 2 knowledge is good, but the thing is, Glacial Mammoth giving 3 production per snow tile gives them very, very strong ability to set up all their cities quite quickly, because they can keep putting these cities in the snowy north, and then they keep getting all this free production. They also made a change to resources on the map. The liquids will no longer spawn in grasslands, but will always now spawn in the cold north. This gives Glacial Mammoth an advantage because they will always get liquid spawns. And I want to get that out of the way right now. Glacial Mammoth is like by far the best because you're also always going to start in the north, in the cold areas. If you have frost resist on your race, you'll always resist the damage types of the enemies up there. So it's very easy to negate the penalties of the early game that Glacial has, that I will go into as time goes on, because I do, as we go over their roster, you'll see, right? So Glacial Mammoth is, I think, by far the best. Stormcrow, despite getting... Okay, so the reason I wouldn't call Stormcrow, like, on par anymore, Grassland, as I did mention, doesn't get liquids anymore. They only get the plants. Plants are awful. That was a big nerf. Now, they do, of course, get this very powerful Grasslands walk. They walk on grasslands faster than they walk on roads. This allows their units to, like... They just zip. They speed. They're speedy boys. They absolutely go full powered through this terrain. Yeah, it's... And then I'm going to talk about the boons once it gets to units, but let's say Stormcrow's boon, I think, is the best, if not second best. It really depends on a lot of things. All the free mana is fine, but it's not that good. Other than that, there's Tunneling Spider, which allows you to start underground without having to do underground adaptation. So that saves you 1 free point on your race. Now, the 2 knowledge per underground is quite good. Tunneling Spider, though, has an issue. I'm not even sure if I should be mentioning them as good as they are. Because Primal is so bad in the early game, they definitely have an issue where in the underground you have to do a lot of fighting. And Tunneling Spider is just not good at that from being a Primal. But so why then is Primal so bad at fighting early game? Well, when we look at their roster, and let's look at Primal. Okay, so they do have a shield unit tier 1, which you might be saying, oh, it's so good, and it can mount. It's even better. So why then am I calling it not really that good? Okay, it is 10 damage, which is average for a shield unit, but below average overall. 5-0, nothing special. The special ability is Primal Renewal. Now let's talk about the boon. Okay, before we talk about Primal Renewal. Okay, we got the boon. Let me go to Rising Fury. Okay, so every time a unit attacks, it gets 1 stack of Rising Fury, doubled for single shot attacks. So at 5 stacks, you then get a buff. For example, Fury of the Glacial Mammoth, okay? You get to then do 5 attacks of that. So 5 attacks to build it up, and then 5 attacks until it's gone, and then you have to build it up again. Do you get it? So for example, the Mammoth one gets 4 frost damage and a 30% chance to freeze an enemy each time you attack. Again, that's, you know, that's pretty good, right? And that's it, because Primal Renewal removes all the buffs that you just got. So you attack 5 times and then you can get Primal Renewal. You remove all the stacks of the Fury and heal 5 per. And then you enter defense mode. If this is sounding really, really underwhelming, it's because it is. There's almost no situation where this is good other than when your unit is like literally going to die. There's almost no time during a fight. It's a good idea to lose all the buffs you spent the entire fight building up to then also not attack on that turn. Especially because the buffs are really strong. So the Protector almost never uses his ability and has nothing else going for him other than just the racial boon. It is a tier 1 shield unit, which makes it decent because it comes in before magic damage starts hitting the field and making him irrelevant. But for so far as tier 1 shield units, he's like blatantly the worst, and it's not even close. He's like blatantly the worst. Primal Darter is of course another tier 1 archer. For tier 1 archer, she's tanky, 55 HP, 1 defense, 1 resistance. This makes her above average. So why do I call her an absolute terrible joke? Why is she an absolute terrible joke? So she only has range 3. So she just has less range. Her, I guess, boon here is disengaging shot. You deal damage to target unit and jump back 3 hexes. So it does allow you to disengage from an enemy and be really annoying. Primal Darters aren't too bad on paper, but I've often found that -1 range more than compensates for everything else they do. So this tier 1 roster is not blowing my mind. They're not great. Now at tier 2 we get the healer. Now the Animist is one of the worst healers in the game. He does have 1 cheese you can do, sitting in the corner and having Animists heal each other to build up stacks of Rising Fury, right? But other than that 1 trick, they're not good. They have a 20 heal that they can use every 3 turns. Their healing per turn is utterly abysmal. Their basic attack just does the typical boon, so you get nothing special here. They can ban cavalry, which is nice. Now, if they do get to 5 stacks of Rising Fury through attacking or through being healed by other people, they can summon down their spirit animal, and that is strong. But again, this means that the Animist is kind of like they have to just awkwardly sit in the corner of a map and cheese out healing each other to build stacks. It's a really dumb playstyle. It's not fun to do at all. And if you don't do it, you'll very quickly notice that the Animist is not a good healer. Their other tier 2 unit is the Primal Charger. This is just an average tier 2 shock unit. Now, if we do compare this to the Knight I was talking about earlier, she's slower, unmounted, no ability to mount, not fast, average stats, nothing special about her. Just overall, just not a very appealing or great unit. Just not great at all. It would be nice if they at least gave them like maybe 80 HP, you know, like... But no, I mean, she doesn't even get the 80 HP of a tier 2 unit. So she's got the same HP as a tier 1 unit, which is a recurring problem with tier 2 units, by the way. A lot of times they just do not get stats. They're like like they're an advanced tier 1 unit rather than actually being a tier 2 unit. Charge Strike is just average, no special effects or anything here. Now they do have Cleaving Charge, which is good on paper, but not really that good in reality. You do get to run forward. It does do more damage per hex traveled. It can hit multiple enemies. So why is it not good? So Charging Strike is single shot, giving it double scaling. That's quite good. It cancels defense. It removes retaliations. This is really strong. It does more base damage. Cancels retaliation, cancels defense, scales much better because it's single shot. Cleaving Charge on the other hand, not good. Not good. Just not good at all. Primal Charger is just very underwhelming. Ancestral Warden, then, the tier 3 unit. Okay, so Ancestral Warden, this unit is fine, I would say. Ancestral Warden is fine. Her stats are pretty decent. 95 HP, 4 defense, 3 resistance. Pretty decently stat. I'd like to see more tier 3 racial units be stat well, by the way. And definitely I'd like to see more tier 2 racial units be stat well. I don't know why tier 2 units are often just stat as if they're like tier 1. It kind of makes them unappealing. But at any rate, she's a good spearman unit. 16 damage is fine. She's got that first strike, charge resist from being a spearman unit. Now she has a special ability. It's quite good if you rush Ancestral Wardens, but it doesn't scale that good. Now, Ancestral Wardens are a powerful unit, and if you do manage to get a lot of them early game, they will do quite good. Now, for an action point, you jump forward, deal AoE damage, and enter defense mode. This allows you to get into quite good positions, be tanky, be hard to remove with that defense mode first strike. You know, it can be difficult to deal with. Now, the downside is Primal Lunge is not considered base. So it will not scale with almost any enchantment. Almost no enchantment will scale Primal Lunge. This means as the game goes on, and as we get more and more enchantments, Primal Lunge will slowly and surely start falling off. So you use them early in the game if you can get to tier 3 early, but later in the game you kind of have to ditch them because Primal Lunging to deal 7 damage after mitigation is not really good. So I guess with all that said, does Primal have a lot of things to make up for it? I'm gonna go with my gut feeling and say yeah. So instead of 10 production, 5 draft on their production building, they get 5 draft, 8 production, 5 food. They give up 2 production for 5 food. It's fine, I guess. On the Stone Steel, on the other hand, this is where this gets like weird. On the Stone Steel, they give up 5 production for 5 food. Food's already not that good, and if I'm going the production line, I'd really like to not be losing my production for food. Additionally, I'd really like to actually get some bonuses from my cultural buildings and not just a total side grade. So that's not good. Now, of course, this brings us to their tier 3 building. I need to look up its name. The Shrine to the Spirits. For 450 production, you get 10 food income per farm. It's fine if you're doing like an expansion victory and you slap down like 7 farms trying to reach expansion victory ASAP, but like that is literally the only world where that's good. You need an outrageous amount of farms, which you generally don't want an outrageous amount of farms to make this good. It's just generally not good. I think if the production cost was lower, it would be fine. Like, yeah, it's just as is. It's just really not that good. It's fine in the right situation. They very much are encouraging Primal to. They're very much encouraging Primal to go with like an expansion victory, a food victory, and I guess it's fine for that. But it's just very limiting. And even in that situation, as you saw with like the feudal aristocracy building is better generally in every situation, despite it costing a lot more production, mind you. So overall, Primal, Glacial Mammoth can make up for their early game penalties by being able to counter build the NPC units they'll find around them, which is, you know, pretty decent. Stormcrow just gets giga movement speed and a very powerful boon. Because if I go over their boons here really quick, we can see if it stops doing it to me. So when Mire Crocodile builds up their boon, they get 3 blight damage and inflict diseased, which is cool, fine. Stormcrow's boon, on the other hand, is you get 3 lightning damage and 4 lightning damage to every enemy adjacent unit. That's a little bit better. Glacial Mammoth, as you saw, is 4 frost damage and a chance to freeze, which is really strong. Ash Sabertooth gets 3 fire damage and 4 fire damage to another unit within 2 hexes. So almost as good as Stormcrow's if Ash Sabertooth didn't have to start in the desert, which is like the worst. No, sorry, Ashlands. No, actually, Ashlands got buffed. Okay, sorry. I just instinctively hated on Ashlands. Ashlands did get buffed a lot in this patch. It might be better now, especially because they do ignore the city's stability penalty from lava, so they can settle lava provinces. Okay, honestly, like, it got a buff. I just don't think, like, I think other than Stormcrow and Glacial, I mean, it's like Stormcrow, Glacial, Tunneling are the best. On the 4 bad ones, I would say Ash Sabertooth might be the better one. Sylvan Wolf goes in and out of being good, just sort of based on how balance is and things like that. Let's see. Dune Serpent gets Dune Serpent's Boon. You inflict blind and 4 physical damage, which is not bad, actually. I would say it's not actually bad. It's just these people start in desert and for some reason only get 2 gold for the desert. Absolutely miserable. This is probably by far the weakest one. Sylvan Wolf does actually get a decent one. It's 3 spirit damage plus 2 spirit damage per friendly unit adjacent to the target. This can stack up pretty decently and be good. Overall, it's fine. Spirit damage did get nerfed this patch as well. Overall, Primal, I think they've been power creeped a lot, and their weak early game isn't great. I'm not saying Primal's bad. I would say overall, they're slightly below mid-tier, but I would say there's certainly some Primal sub-factions which can do quite good. Reavers. I'm not going to spend much time on Reavers because they are very complicated. They're one of these factions that, like, I should say cultures. They're one of these cultures that, like, when they get a good start, they can do quite good. When they don't get a good start, they collapse, die, can't do anything, and fail miserably the entire game. I'm not really sure what to say other than that. I mean, that's just literally how it goes. You're either going to do really good or going to do really bad. But when you do really bad, you're going to feel absolutely miserable. And when you do really good, you're going to feel good, but it's not even going to be like that amazing. Overall, I would say Reaver is, they're fine, but like whatever. It's going to take too much time to explain the war spoil system, but basically if they do conquest and battle with empires and free cities, they get war spoils. That's it. They can, I think they use war spoils to get cannons and stuff. We're not going to go over it too much. Yeah. So overall, they have no buff other than war spoils, and this is kind of why they can be so snowbally. Let's say swingy, actually. If they can get good fights and get lots of war spoils, they can, they can swing high and do really good. And if they can't find early fights, or even if they find another faction that they're not going to beat in combat, so like they have to back off for a second, then they don't get war spoils at all and they collapse and die. So they're very swingy, very high or very low, right? They won kind of good advantage. They can declare war on anyone without a penalty. So, I mean, if you're playing a very aggressive early game, that's pretty good. Overall, Reaver is just like, it's hard to understand. They're complicated in a way that, like, I don't want to spend too much time talking about them. Some of their biggest issues are their unit roster. So at tier 1, they have the mercenary. And the thing about the mercenary is that on paper, the mercenary is not bad at all. On paper. And it's kind of weird. He's a tier 1 unit. He's got 2 abilities, Melee Strike and Drive Back. Now, Drive Back is a pretty high damage ability at tier 1, but it's not base, so it won't get any enchantments, so it will fall off, and it will deal far less damage than you think it would be, because you're probably going to get an early game damage enchantment, and this one won't get it. So already, it's going to start, it's already going to start falling off pretty early in the game. It gets Piercing to ignore 50% of the defense, but not their resistance, which does help, but okay. Overall, I mean, it's a pretty high stat, tier 1 Spearman, 75, 3, 2. Pretty good spear wall right at tier 1 right there. I mean, that's a pretty good spear line, right? It's almost as good as a tier 2 high spearman, so, there's no actual problem here. Now, it's high maintenance, so its unit upkeep is increased by 2. So, of course, what is the problem with Mercenary? The problem with Mercenary is Reavers rely on mercenaries the entire game to be their frontline. They never get a different frontline unit. They could try to research into one, but there's generally not really many good options for that, right? So the mercenary runs into an issue where the entire game he's trying to be Reaver's frontline, and although he's pretty decent at it, like early in the game, as the game goes on, he gets weaker and weaker at it. He doesn't have a shield. He's only got 2 resistance. Eventually, he's just not going to be able to do the job, right? Now, it does have this drive back ability, which allows him to push an enemy away, which does work with these later units. It is quite good. Overall, I mean, he's fine, but like the problem is he's trying to carry the entire faction on his back, and it could be a challenging affair, let's say. They do have the Harrier as another tier 1 skirmisher unit. He's got melee strike, obviously. He's got cast net. Now, of course, the thing with Reavers is their melee units mark enemies, reducing their evasion, and then their ranged units get bonus. Well, I mean, it says it right here. Melee attacks mark enemies, ranged attacks do more damage to marked enemies. So the Harrier can, cast net marks enemies, so that's pretty good, but it does have a cooldown. Unlike other skirmishers, he can't use it every turn. I think it's one of the only ways to apply mark at range. So he can mark enemies at range, which then helps his allies out. He can immobilize. The immobilize chance is pretty good, but it is on a cooldown, so eventually he'll have to run into melee. This is their tier 1 roster. As you see here, this is not the greatest tier 1 roster. The Mercenary wouldn't be bad. I would actually say the Mercenary could probably carry the tier 1 roster, but you can't buff drive back. And importantly, and this is definitely a problem, Reavers are very much not a melee faction, so you're not going to see the Mercenary getting many enchantments or buffs, and he's eventually just going to fall off. And that's really all I have to say. Like, on paper, the Mercenary is just fine. He really is, on paper, just fine. But we'll see as we start going through it, the issue. The Mage Lock is a tier 2 archer. Now, she's quite squishy. I mean, 61-1. It's average for an archer, but boy, that does feel squishy, right? She's got a very powerful arsenal, and it keeps getting reworked. So by the time you see this video, this might be reworked again. I don't know. Her whole shtick is that she ignores 50% of defense and resistances and does more damage to marked targets. She's got a 4-range shot. This is the snap shot. This is meant to be, you move into position and then you bam, shoot it, right? But if you're already in position, then you have the fire the heavy mage lock. Okay, so the snapshot does less damage. This one does 50% more damage. And this one has 5 range with 100% accuracy. So once your mage locks are actually in position, they can start obliterating the enemies with very high firepower per round. What's the downside? As we mentioned, you're relying entirely on mercenaries to hold the front line. If your front line isn't held, these units tend to not be very good at moving around. These units need allies to mark enemies to get, the most out of their damage, and these units are just very squishy. So the problem here is the mercenary needs to hold the front line, and the mage lock, well, the mercenary can't just, it's going to keep coming back to the mercenary is going to get outscaled and isn't going to be able to do his job. Now, the Overseer did get buffed recently, and he's significantly better right now. And this does help Reavers a lot, so this might change some things. But the Overseer got 10 more HP. Patch Up went from 40 healing to 45, and he now enters defense mode after using Patch Up. So the Overseer is significantly better on the front line, because he's got 70 HP. He won't die as easily, right? And he can heal allies for more HP, and after healing allies, he enters defense mode, which makes him a bit tankier. The Overseer is, I would say, a pretty solid support unit now. There's no real downside to the Overseer. I mean, there is a 3-turn cooldown on Patch Up, but it does also heal, like, a lot. So, his shtick here, I guess you want to call it that, if an enemy is immobilized, frozen, or stunned, he can attempt to subdue him. If a unit is subdued, this unit is subdued by an enemy. It cannot use actions or movement. This unit is captured if the caster is victorious. Blah, 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 blah. You can capture enemies by subduing them. So, that's why I didn't want to talk too much about Reavers, because they're like one, like even compared to some of the more complicated factions, they're like complicated. So there's whole shtick with the Overseer. He's kind of tanky. He heals a lot. And then you can try to capture enemy units either to kind of do like a quasi perma CC just to, remove them from the battlefield, or because you want to, recruit them for your own army and add them to your own army. I think the idea was that the Overseers subdue enemy melee units, and then you put them in your army, and then you use those melee units to tank for you. I guess that was the idea. How well it did, I don't know. Okay, so there's the Mage Lock and the Mage Lock Cannon. The Mage Lock Cannon pretty much replaces the Mage Lock. once you get enough war spoils and stuff to get cannons. But of course, it can be difficult to get your cannons. These are a powerful unit. Much tankier than the Mage Lock, obviously, but it is tier 3 compared to tier 2. But because it's, you know, way tankier, it's easy to keep alive. Instead of having 5 range, it technically has 7. It doesn't have a snapshot attack, but because this does a 3 hex line nuke, it's 5 range, and then I'll shoot 2 more after that, so 5, 6, 7. So it's got a lot more range than the Mage Lock. It'll deal a bit less damage, but it's still got that same piercing and breaching effect. Yeah, so it does cancel defense mode, it does cancel retaliation. So, you know, it's very good at, well, actually, I don't really know. I mean, it's not like, I guess other units could then shoot also units in defense mode and do more damage. So certainly the Mage Lock Cannon, if it's sitting in the back, does a lot of damage. But again, you need war spoils to get it. It's kind of swingy. The other tier 3 unit is a Dragoon, a tier 3 skirmisher. I think the only tier 3 skirmisher. This is a very unique unit, and once again, we're getting into, you might be noticing a recurring issue here of like, wow, this would be cool if I had a front line. Yeah. So Dragoon, every single turn gets to do harrying shot, and every single turn after you do harrying shot, yeah, after attacking, this unit regains half their action points but can no longer attack. So it can run up, shoot an enemy, then run away, and then end their turn on the other side. And that is annoying and strong, actually. Slower armies can literally never reach Dragoons, who can keep harrying shot them from long range. They do get piercing, they do get breaching, so, you know, these attacks do ignore half your resistances, making this a quite powerful attack. Now, the downside is it's only 3 range, and the unit itself is a tier 3 skirmisher, so it's got below average HP, nothing remarkable on defenses. That's about it. It's a tier 3 skirmisher. It's like a really good tier 3 skirmisher, but at the end of the day, if you don't have a front line, you might find yourself kind of pinned at the edge of the map as you keep like shooting enemies, backing away, but never actually getting kills. Overall, as we can see here with the Reavers, we're not, what's the right way to put this? We're not really seeing anything that amazing coming out of their roster. The cannon is good, but you need war spoils to get it. The Mage Lock is decent, but it suffers from the tier 2 problem. It comes in the game too late. Like, by the time you can start massing Mage Locks, it's already starting to get to the point where people are going to run it down. The Dragoon is good, for sure. I definitely think the Dragoon is good. But it's hard to do a skirmisher army because unless you're kind of tanky like the Stormbringer, which did get nerfed, but if you're not kind of tanky and damaging like the Stormbringer, you can run into a problem where you harass them, you back off, you harass them, you back off, and oh wait, now you're in the corner of the map and you've only killed like 2 people. So that could be a bit of a problem. As for their buildings, there's like nothing special. I mean, so you give up mana to get production. And then at tier 2, you give up 5 mana to get 5 production. You generate less mana and you generate more production. Overall, I would say that's a good trade, but again, these are just not really anything noticeable, let's say. They're not, like, okay, so I gave up 1 resource to get another resource. Certainly, this was not some amazing, outstanding trade, right? Like, it was okay. So then their tier 3 building, which they can get on their city, again, at tier 3. It's the Extraction Nexus. Every special province improvements gives you 2 gold, 2 mana. It's fine, but I mean, even if you had 5, that's 10 mana, 10 gold. So actually, when I said it's fine, I said it's laughably, horribly underpowered, and I don't really understand it. Yeah, that's not good either. So a weak, unique building chain, a weak tier 3 building. We're not really getting anything to work with here. Do we then get any tomes or anything that are good? Well, we get the Reaver Manufactorum, which is a mine. We don't really like those, but it could give draft, I guess. Yeah. The only real decent thing is you can use Suppressing Barrage, which gives enemy units have a 30% chance of being immobilized at 1 hex radius. It's a bit of a crapshoot. I mean, you got a 30% chance to take them out for a turn, or, you know, that's it. So I guess that's all I can say for Reavers. They're
origin culture.
Yeah. I mean, you can kind of compare rosters here, right? Like when we're looking at the previous rosters, you're like, wow, this is amazing, works absolutely perfectly. Then we get to Reavers and Primal, and you're like, oh, yeah, okay. So this takes us to Industrious. Now, Industrious is hard to quantify. I would say Industrious is a culture. They play more on the world map. They don't play so much in battles. In battles, they're a bit underwhelming, but on the world map, they are probably the second most powerful faction after you-know-who. Industrious is... When they say higher production, they mean it. Oh, wow. Scout prospecting, and this is like Industrious basically is scout prospecting. All your scouts can prospect any mountain province once. It's a cliff, mountain, or stalagmite. It can be prospected once, which can give you a free item, free production, or gold. And these aren't small amounts, like 60 gold or 60 production. It can happen over and over and over again. Throughout the course of a game, this adds up a lot, and Industrious can build up megalopolises of immense size while having absolutely insane amounts of early game gold. This is a very, 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 very powerful effect of Industrious. That's like what their faction is based on. Their buildings aren't too bad either. We'll go into that, but I just want to emphasize scout prospecting is like 90% of the faction. That's like 90% of why they're good. And they are good. I mean, they're not like literally the best, but they are good. I would certainly say they're better than Reaver and Primal on average, right? Just the ability, like, if you play properly for Industrious, they can scale really strong and really fast. As for their roster, it started off pretty good when the game was new, and it's just been power creeped ever since. So let's talk about their shield unit. They have a tier 1 shield unit. He's interesting. So he's got below average damage by a lot at 8. It's not great to be at 8. It's not a lot. He does get +1 retaliation attack. So if you do attack him, he, like a spear unit would do 12 damage first strike. He does 16 damage on second strike. It's not useless. Like, it does make, it gives him something, but it makes him particularly weak against charge units because he can't even attack into them or he'll take more damage and he'll never retaliate. It makes him weak against range because he just doesn't deal enough damage. He's very balanced on that watchful. Now, he does, of course, all Industrious units have bolstering. Once per turn, they either get a bolstered defense or bolstered resistance when they take damage, depending on what damage type they took. It's okay. It's not exactly wonderful. It's It's kind of really weak, actually, in the end of the day. His special ability is Taunt. He has a 90% chance to taunt an enemy, then enters defense mode. This is really good because it can lock... Like, enemies can get taunted, and then they just sprint across the battlefield, allowing them... Basically, you can force enemies to walk into you and die, which is quite useful. I mean, enemies walking into you and dying, I mean, that's just, you know, just shoot them, right? So what do they have to shoot? The Arbalist. Now, the Arbalist did get buffed recently, and this helped out Industrious a lot. Arbalist, I think, was a 50-0-0, which was okay. Now it's a 50-1. So that's a bit tankier. Okay, a little bit of a bug there. So the Arbalist doesn't die as easy, and I believe it got an actual bug fix. Overdraw Crossbow should now actually cancel defense mode and remove retaliation attack. So, in addition to Overdraw Crossbow being a 5 range, 100% accuracy, I mean, it is a full action, but this is like, I think the right way to put it is this is like a mage lock, but at tier 1 when you can actually use them. And Overdraw Crossbow does a lot of damage and removes that defense mode and allows units to just dogpile in and beat the crap out of them. So, Arbalist and Vilgard are a very strong 1-2 combo. Compared to pretty much every other faction where there's blatantly one better tier 1 unit, both of these tier 1 units are actually pretty good, and both of them actually work pretty well together. So there's no real issue with the Anvil Guard and the Arbalist. The low damage can be a bit crappy, though. At tier 2, we've got the Halberdier. He does low damage again. A tier 2 Halberdier typically does 5 14 damage. He does 12. He gets Rune of Retaliation, First Strike, and Watchful. So basically, he will always get the first strike on an enemy, dealing his damage first. Then he gets 2 retaliations instead of 1. And then 40% of all melee damage he takes is reflected back onto his attacker. So Halberdier is probably noted as one of the most frustrating units to fight because there is almost no way to outtrade them with a melee unit. There's almost no way any melee unit can beat Halberdier without taking at least about as much damage as they're dealing to him. It's a bit rough. They're very tanky. They're very good. They do suffer the tier 2 problems somewhat. They do at least get a little bit of HP, but you can see, you know, old tier 2 units kind of suffer this problem where they're kind of stat like an advanced tier 1 unit. He still has this problem as well. Overall, he's good, but obviously as a spear unit with below average damage at tier 2, he's not going to scale that great, but yeah, I mean, he just suffers from the tier 2 dilemma. Steel Shaper they are strong, but they're also weak, and it really depends on a lot. Okay, so every one of these Industrious units gets a defense every single time bolster every time they get attacked, once per turn. Now, what the Steel Shaper does is a free action to bolster defense, which allows her to make people pretty tanky for free. A 16 physical damage nuke, which is I mean, it'd much be better as magic damage, but you get the idea. Special ability, Strength from Steel. You lose all stacks of bolstered resistance and bolstered defense, and then for every stack lost, they heal 8 and get a strengthened. Now, of course, you can stack both of them and technically heal 80 if you had both at full. Technically, it'd be hard, but sure. But for every stack lost, you also get a strengthened, which does allow you, if a unit got beat to crap and, you know, kind of bolstered up during the fight, you could hypothetically heal it up, remove all 5 bolstered defense, heal it for 40, bring its casualties back up so it's doing full damage, and it gets 5 strength, and then it whacks an enemy and does huge damage. Overall, the Steel Shaper is not a bad support. I put it like average, maybe a bit above average. It's good. It's a bit tricky to use Strength from Steel, but there's lots of ways to generate bolster. And if you do hit a really big heal, it can be really strong. It's also only on a 1-turn cooldown, so you can use it every other turn. So 1 or 2 Steel Shapers standing in the back, even in the late game, can really make some swingy plays. Overall, I do like Steel Shaper. A bit trickier of a healer to use, but that's not bad. Bastion. Okay, Bastion is one of these units that on paper is outrageously strong, and then in reality is quite not strong. So Bastion is 100 HP, 7 defense, 2 resist, which a year ago was like really good. These days they're really starting to struggle, is what I'm trying to say. They have 2 below damage attack, so they should have 14, instead they have 12. Spear units would have 16 at rank 3. They have 12. So we can see why shield units are starting to struggle. Shield units are weirdly punished for being shield units to get a shield, which largely stops mattering in late game unless you're fighting chaos, because they're the only people doing mostly physical damage. At any rate, their special ability, Defensive Sweep. You hit an enemy unit. Adjacent enemies take 50% of the damage, and then you enter defense mode. What's the problem? It's melee, but it's not base, and it's not single shot. So while this might do a somewhat amount of damage early in the game, by mid-game it's doing almost no damage because you can barely enchant it because it's not considered a base attack, and because it's not single shot, even the few enchantments that do work on it treat it like it's a single attack and not a single shot attack. Overall, damage extraordinarily underwhelming, ability extraordinarily underwhelming. Their stat line was really good when the game was launched, but nowadays I would say this is fairly average. Their one defining good thing is every 3 turns they can use Inspiring Defense to get a free stack of bolstered defense, which is fine, I guess. And then they get +1 retaliation. Overall, you can kind of see the problem here, can't you? None of this really actually looks that good. I've seen a lot of people build to Bastions because it was like an old meta thing to do the Giga Bastion. I saw a lot of people doing the Giga Bastion and it's fallen apart every time. It's just not that good. anymore. It's just totally fallen off a cliff. They can't deal with ranged units. They can't deal with mages. They can't even beat other melee. I think bastions right now literally lose to every single strategy. There's not a single strategy they beat. They can't beat skirmishers. They can't beat charge units. They might hypothetically beat pikemen, but they actually lose to pikemen in like hypothetical land. When you're talking about theoretically, they'll theoretically beat pikemen, but then in practical gameplay, they actually lose to pikemen. They're quite bad. Now, all of this does mean that when you play Industrious, we're working on the scout prospecting, okay? That means we are very much using these giga cities, this very, very powerful early game, to just set up a very... well, like, I mean, that's it. We're just setting up really, really strong cities, right? So this takes us to Workers' Farmstead. As you might imagine, with these... if I'm not gloating about how good their building is, it's likely because it's bad. But Workers' Farmstead, basically what you do, you give up 2 food for 5 production. Then at Grand Mill, you give up 5 food for 5 production. Overall, very underwhelming. Overall, not really doing anything for me. It's a change, I guess. They get more production than food. It's just not... it's not doing it for me. It's not great, okay? It's not... yeah. Their unique tier 3 building is the Bastion's Barricade. Now this, you need to notice something about this. It only costs 250 production, not 450, not 750. It's pretty easy to slap this down in any city that's about to be attacked. And once you do, you get 2 bastions on the defender's side when you're in a defensive siege. Even if bastions aren't that great, getting 2 of them for free is great. That also allows you to fight any siege battle 20 versus 18, which puts you in a pretty large advantage. Also, with the rework to fortification health, there's not that much fortification health left in the game. This means that industrious cities are just the best at tanking. They take the longest to siege. Then you just get 10 city stability, which is nice, I guess. It's a bit neat. So this takes us to one of the unique things of Industrious that goes a bit under the radar. I need to, yes. Okay. So I need to verify this really quick. Yes, it's actually true. So one of the unique things of Industrious that a lot of people don't know, if we actually look here, the tier 3 Industrious Town Hall gives you 2 buffs that a lot of people don't know about. Hurry production costs less and hurry recruitment costs less. All Industrious cities get this for free. That's just part of their tier 3 Town Hall. Very, very few town halls just generically buff you. Industrious does. This is strong, as you might imagine. It allows you to spend your gold to build things out quicker. Once you have a tier 3 city, it's pretty good. So that's just something I want to talk about. That's what I'm saying. Industrious in battle, pretty bad. Industrious on the map, really strong. Industrious building stuff, amazing, the best. Industrious fighting in battles, weak. Okay, now at tier 4, so I need to make sure I'm getting this right. At tier 4, they have the industry compound. Now that's their tier 4 town hall, which again has another buff. When you run out of things to build in your city and you start turning production into gold, that will happen if you're playing Industrious, because they make the most gold, they make the most industry, right? They make the most production, they'll get through their buildings really quick. Your capital might run out of things to build and then just be turning production into gold, which isn't great. But Industrious cities at tier 4 convert an additional 10% of their production into gold. Now these are 2 buffs, and they're worth mentioning because it's actually a pretty big buff to Industrious, to their strength on the map, and a lot of people actually don't know that one, which is kind of funny. So that's about it for Industrious. So far as their spells, I mean, they get Builder's Quarters. This one's fine. 15 production, 5 production per quarry. It's like a fine province improvement. I typically build it. There's no reason really not to build it. It's better than Farmstead, 15 production versus 15 food. I'd take the 15 production. As for the other ones, all friendly units lose all stacks of bolstered defense and bolstered resistance. For each stack they lost, they gain strength and fortune. This is strong. For a tier 1 spell, for a spell you get from your cultural tome, it actually does weirdly scale throughout the game. It does mean, like, even in a late game battle, you can turn this on, like, maybe 3 turns into the combat, and then all of a sudden your units, like, they're like, oh my god, they do so much more damage. Bolstering chant can also be frustrating to fight. A 20 heal with 2 bolstered defense. The high version of this gives 2 resistance. I think when we're talking about early game heals, armor is going to be better than resistance. So I actually think bolstering chant is better in this one. So, you know, Industrious, as a culture, on paper, they don't seem like they're that good, but they have all these bonuses, and they have all this way that their campaign map is just so, like when playing the game, their map bonuses are just outrageously strong. You just need to find a way to turn those bonuses into something. That's it. You just need to find a way to turn those bonuses into something. Okay. Dark. Okay, so last time I did this video, I made fun of Dark and called them the second worst faction in the game. They are now the worst faction in the game after the buffs to Feudal. I'm not going to spend too much time on Dark, because if you've played them, you've probably noticed, this sucks. Okay, Dark has no economy advantage, they have no map advantage, nothing. That's it. There's just no advantage. Okay, let's talk about their spells. So they have good spells? Not really. They have a good special province improvement? Not really. I mean, they do get Brand of Wrath. Now this does give ranged characters an automatic weaken, which can actually, ironically, kind of be good. Giving every battle mage an automatic weaken on every attack. This is, ironically, their strongest attribute. And this is why I'm saying, like, even Dark has some tricks they can pull off. A lot of people don't think about it, but yes, even Dark has some tricks that they can do to be strong. Every single ranged attack, even AoEs, even multi-hits applying weakened, can be pretty good on ranged units. It can be pretty abusable, it can be pretty strong, right? Now let's look at their unit roster. You're going to see exactly one thing that's good, and I'm not even sure if it's intended. Dark Warrior, a tier 1 melee unit with 60 HP, 1 defense, 1 resistance. Enough said. Pursuer, a tier 1 archer with, I mean, it's got a 90% chance to weaken. Oh, right, it's not an automatic weaken, it's a 90%. Did I say automatic earlier? Sometimes my words are bad. I should be good with the words. But, yeah, that's it. It's a range unit. Okay, nothing special here. Night Guard, tier 3 spearman. How good is he? Well, imagine the halberdier, but worse in every single way. So at the start of this unit turn, adjacent enemy units have a 90% chance of being sundered on defense and resistance. Not at the start of his turn, not when he moves into combat. So he moves into combat, attacks an enemy, and then, I guess, they fight back against him, and then at the start of his turn he gets buffed. I guess the idea is maybe you put him on the front line, enemies run in to engage him, and then at the start of your turn they get debuffed. It's a nice idea in theory, but in reality it doesn't work. And as always, he's suffering from the tier 2 problem. He's not as good as tier 3 units, but he's very much more expensive than tier 2 units, or sorry, the tier 1 units, and he's not really that good on his own. Honest to God, I think every tier 2 unit should have like plus 5 HP, or at the very least get reworked a bit so that they are a bit better. Yeah. Overall, I mean, there's just nothing special about this guy. I'm being fast because there's just nothing special about this roster. Dark Knight used to be good at game launch, now obviously a bit undertuned. Dark Surge is a full action ability that hits every unit in a 2-hex cone with a 90% chance to weaken, and if they have any negative status effect at all, it does a lot of damage. Problems. It's considered magic, not even melee, it's not considered base, and it's not considered single shot. In other words, it doesn't scale at all. It might be good if you rush Dark Knights, but even by the time you've got like 2 or 3 enchantments on your melee units, you're gonna be like, oh, this doesn't really hurt anymore. Not at least compared to Church Strike. Overall, I mean, let's look at this. It's just blah, 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 blah. So what's the only good thing about Dark right now? The Warlock. The Warlock recently got a rework where Sundering Curse now hits 2 targets and automatically inflicts debuffs. The debuffs got halved and the damage got reduced, but on a 1-turn cooldown, so usable every other turn, you can automatically hit an enemy and their nearest ally. Why is this so good? Well, because it is a base attack, debuff attack, magic attack, and single shot attack. That means that this ability scales fully with every single enchantment and hits 2 targets for full scaling damage. That means these warlocks are actually outrageously good at using enchantments, outrageously good at being a tier 2 battle mage that gives an outrageously good amount of scaling. Warlocks are so good, they're one of the only tier 2 units right now that actually scales so hard. They're not usable maybe against like a full tier 4 army, but even if they were up against a tier 4 army, they could put up a fight. And that's about it for Dark. That's it. That's, yeah, I don't know. Let's talk about their buildings. Do we even have to? You're probably suspecting what's about to happen, right? They're awful. What is this one called? Experiment. Okay, so this one, you lose 2 gold to get 5 knowledge. Honestly, not that bad. The next one, you lose 5 gold to get 5 knowledge. Once again, honestly, it's a good trade. It's one of the only trades where you're actually trading up. Knowledge is worth more than gold. So I'd actually say overall, this is actually good. Yes. I don't actually have any real complaints about this one. It's fine. It's good. The other ones often trade down resources. You trade to resources that are less valuable. This one trades to resources that are more valuable. So in a way, you're still trading 5 to 5, but it's a better 5. Okay. So that brings us to the Overlord's Tower. This is their tier 3 building. Prevents provinces from breaking off due to low city stability. Huh? And then you get 10 mana and 10 draft. Okay. Huh. Now they do have some unique buildings over here. I was looking up there. They do have the interrogation chamber. This replaces the tavern and bathhouse. So instead of getting 20 then 40 city stability, you get 10 then 20, which can kind of make your life rather difficult. But with the interrogation chamber, you get 10 less city stability, but you do get 5 knowledge and 2 knowledge per hero in the prison. Honestly, it's like a trade-off. I'm not sure it's a good one. I mean, it is probably good overall, I would say. It just, like, if you have no stability generation whatsoever, it can make your life rather rough. Ritual Mausoleum is where the trade-off starts getting, in my opinion, a bit too rough. It's way too rough, in my opinion. So this one, instead of 40 city stability and all units produced in the city get more unit experience, you lose 20 city stability to get 5 mana and 2 mana per hero in the crypt. This one, if anyone's listening to me, yeah, could we maybe make this better? In all honesty, just losing the bathhouse experience is kind of a nerf, like a decent one. I think this could go to 40 city stability, and I think it would still be fine. Then the first one, you're kind of trading off stability to get late game knowledge scaling. This one, but yeah, it just, and that's the problem with Dark. That's it. That's like all of Dark. Like, I'm not even joking. It's just,
origin culture.
Yeah. They're like the worst in the game. I mean, you can still play them. You can still win. I'm just saying. I mean, you got 2 Shadow Affinity, and Shadow Affinity is the best affinity, other than Astral, which we'll get into. So, for the purpose of this video, I decided to make a new tier for cultures. I'm going to call it Mystic Tier. So, there's S, A, B, C, and D tier, and Mystic I'm going to call Mystic Tier, because they're just on their own level. I don't really understand what's going on and why the devs like love this faction so, or I should say this culture so much, but like I'm not even gonna go, let's not even go into like the specifics of any of this. All three of them are overpowered as shit. Attunement does a gajillion damage, and you can use echo casting. Potential gives you infinite food, infinite stability, infinite Imperium. It's crazy. Summoning allows you to just oh my god, summoning is insane. You can get tier 3. You basically force veterancy up your tier 1 units, and then you're sitting on tier 3 snow elementals and shit way too early. Sorry, snow spirits. Oh my god, summoning, all three of them are just terribly broken, just off the bat. Holy crap. Remember what I was talking about with Industrious' cities, by the way? So, this is kind of a problem, because this is actually a huge problem. Let's, I want to look this up. The tier 4 building, for Mystic, all the other buildings are just normal, other than Industrious. Mystic is just a cultural bonus just for playing Mystic. Every tier 4 city gives you 10 world map casting points and 10 combat casting. These are two things that are supposed to be quite limited, and Mystic just gets them on every tier 4 city for free, which is kind of insane. So each of the subcultures are insane in their own way, and then just for reaching tier 4, they get another insane bonus. So, each of the cities, I should say each of the subcultures at tier 3 gets their own, unique tier 3 building. So, this one grants, which is this one for? Mystic, oh god, I forgot the name. There's Mystic Potential, Mystic Summoning, Mystic, the first one. Yeah, these guys. All units produced in the city gets 2 vision range and true sight, which isn't that bad. 10 astral echoes. This one doesn't seem that bad, right? Then we got the Academy of Potential, which gives +1 starting rank to every battle mage and support. After they nerfed starting ranks on units, this one kept it. I mean, I guess Oathsworn Strife also kept theirs, but this is pretty strong. I mean, we're looking at, like, you know, compare this stuff to like these other tier 3 buildings, and I'm not saying these are like the most broken, but like nothing about Mystic is weak, and that's kind of the problem. Lots of other factions have 1 or 2 things that are weak. Nothing about Mystic is weak. Even the Mystic Summoners gets a unique building at tier 3 that grants 30 mana. Now, if you're summoning a lot of things, I mean, it's in its name, Mystic Summoning, that's a lot of mana gen that you will need, and they just get right there. Boom, got it, right? So, I mean, compare this to like Dark's tier 3 does absolutely nothing. Mystic's tier 3 on their worst tier 3 building gives 30 mana. So, that's pretty strong. Let's talk about their spells. Well, we shouldn't talk about their spells. Let's talk about their buildings. Okay, so Mystic Potential gets the Spell Arcanist Library. This is literally the Sunwell. So the best aspect of High is the Sunwell, and Mystic Potential gets it, which is, I'm going to keep saying it, pretty strong. Their spell that they get is Cosmic Ablation, doing 30 single target damage. That's pretty strong, Mystic Potential. Getting a 30 nuke that early. Mystic Summoning gets to conjure Astral Summoning Rift. Now, to be clear, I do want to say this about about Mystic. Mystic is fun to play. They were actually really well made. I think design-wise, they're really cool. I just think that like they're totally out of control power creep to where it was like every cool idea was implemented, but the problem is, when you implement all these different cool ideas over and over and over, you inevitably get to the point where it's just like, okay, like it's going a bit crazy. You know what I mean? Mystic Summoning is Astral Ward, which allows you to link. It's not that great, honestly. Mystic Potential obviously is the best ones by far. Mystic Attunement has what? Yeah, these are pretty crap. Yeah, their big thing is Attunement Starblades. You can give +3 damage to your whole army, which applies to attacks. Even if they're not base attacks, it applies to all of them. So this scales up battle mages and things like that pretty quick. So yeah, Mystic Attunement. And also the casting bonuses and all that stuff. Now, I'm not saying Mystic is unbeatable. They do have a couple flaws. Those flaws are going to be in their roster, at least in the early game. So in the early game, they do have an Arcanist. There's a tier 1 battle mage who is freakishly squishy and not even high damage. 9 damage. 9 damage, I mean, it is magic damage, so that's, you know, kind of like premium damage. 9 premium damage instead of 10, which can be good, yes. I mean, hitting the right targets is actually better, but, you know, low HP and all this, it's... Arcanist is fine, I would say it's fine, but it's the only battle mage without an ability. Now, it doesn't have an ability because it's tier 1. If it had an ability, that'd be, you know, a bit silly, right? Next up is Arcane Guard. Why is Arcane Guard so bad? It is below average health for some reason, and then instead of having 2 defense, 1 resist, has 2 resist, 1 defense. This makes it really squishy, and it dies very easily to all early game enemies who do mostly physical damage, who are you're going to be fighting with the tier 1 unit. So there is one downside of Mystic, right? Like, their early game roster is like bad. At the very least, the Arcane Guard will do Sundered Resistance on a unit that does full physical damage. So Mystic will have to rely entirely on summons. All 3 of them will have to spam summons the entire early game because these units are bad. At tier 2, they do have the Spell Shield. The Spell Shield is a decent enough shield unit. It's not bad. It is mounted by default, which does help it. It's very mobile, and it has Stunning Flash. It runs up and does, or at the very least attempts to do an AoE stun. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That's what 60% means. It can go good or bad depending on how you roll. Soother is a pretty decent healer. Not great, not bad. So you heal 1 unit and then it also heals another unit. So you get 20, then 20. That's not bad. What is the problem? It's on a cooldown too. So you're gonna use it every 3 turns. So far we've not really found any good units, right? And I'm just going through the list here so you guys get the idea. None of these unit roster units are that amazing. Now, of course, the Soother does have spell channeling. Spells are 20% cheaper to cast. So you do want 1 Soother. You can just cast spells every turn, just bam, 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 bam. 20% cheaper is, that's a lot of cheaper. Okay, so now that we're done with that, let's talk about their bread and butter, their tier 3 units. Okay, at tier 3, each different Mystic subculture, yeah, you can see each different Mystic subculture has a different tier 3 battle mage. And the Mystic Summoner is a support unit. So let's talk about then the, who are you for? Attunement. Okay, Mystic Attunement's Battle Mage has Star Purge. Now this is a cooldown. You can use it every 3 turns. Deals double damage to Magic Origin units. Every enemy unit loses all positive status effect. Now it only does 18 damage, which isn't great for a tier 3 unit, but it is very strong for removing every single buff. Every buff gone. Yoinked. Kabloinked. Downside, they only do 12 damage. Upside, they do have a chance to dispel on their basic attack. Overall, Spellbreaker, I mean, that's their name, Spellbreaker, right? They can mount, of course, and they are very, 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 very good at removing debuffs. Their downside, they don't do that much damage. Upside, you get 10 more combat casting for each one of these you have in your army. Overall, Spellbreaker, very strong. You can kind of mix it. If you're doing a battle mage comp, you can mix a couple in. So if the enemies have kind of done a buff ball, you can just be like, no, and they're just yoinked away. Honestly, Spellbreaker, quite good. Very good, in fact. Spell Weaver, now this is for Mystic Potential, I believe, yes. Every single turn, you get 5 more combat casting in combat. So if you have, let's say, 5 of these guys, you're generating 20, 25 combat casting each turn. That's a lot. And that will add up a lot over the battle. Now, unlike you, who only does 12 damage, now you do 14 damage. And you apply the Dissonance, which is the thing for Mystic Potential. Now, your special effect has been changed. It is now a cascading attack. This means you hit a unit with 16 damage, and then it cascades and hits the unit next to them. and then it cascades and hits the unit next time. And it will repeat that forever and ever and ever until it runs out of units to hit. So if enemies clump up, Dissonant Weave does 16 damage to every single one of them, applying a stack of Dissonant, allowing you to do Giga Mega Ultra AoEs. Overall, I would say the Spellweaver actually got nerfed pretty hard in the last update. He no longer allows you to double cast, which is probably a good change, but he does decent enough damage, and he does generate some combat casting, so he is kind of really good. Yes. I'm not saying you maybe not use him all game. Once you get death magic, you probably won't need him, but especially in the early game for getting near infinite combat casting, he's quite good. Now the Mystic Summoner, this guy is very annoying. So he's got spirit summoning, and he can summon a spirit on a 4-turn cooldown. Not a once per combat, a 4-turn cooldown. That's strong, especially considering Mystic Summoning, well, you know, their whole thing is they buff summons. So this unit is generally considered quite annoying to fight. He also does a very high 20 base damage, making him a weirdly high damage support unit. And then he has Astral Bond, which he can link to a friendly Magic Origin unit. This leaves one action point at the end, so you can do this, then attack as well. That Magic Origin unit gets an extra retaliation, more accuracy, and frenzy. So you can do this on things like Reapers and stuff, and then they become almost impossible to fight back against, because they're generating a crapload of strengthened and retaliating twice. Then goes we have Astral Connection, which of course, all Magic Origin units get 5 morale. So the Summoner is outrageously strong. The Spellbreaker is... Whew, I mean, it's hard to quantify, because like removing all buffs can either be like a completely game-winning effect that has no counterplay, or won't really do much because they're not really using buffs. At either rate, I would say the Spellbreaker is outrageously powerful. So Summoner is outrageously powerful, Spellbreaker is outrageously powerful, Spellweaver is also here. After his nerf, he also exists. He's basically here for Arcane Conduit. That's about it. So overall, Mystic is just in its own tier. I don't really have time to describe it. This video is probably a bit long anyway. I don't really have time to describe it. Mystic is just way too good. It's actually nuts. The more we've tried to play, because I mean on this channel we play multiplayer games all the time. The more we've tried to play, the more we've slowly realized it's not just that Mystic is good. It's not just that they're the best. It's just that they're like in their own tier. Like if you properly play Mystic, it's like putting yourself above the best factions. It's actually just ridiculous. Anyway, so how then am I gonna tier the factions? Okay, I did a little list here. We can go over that. This is gonna be very official. I'm a very official man, and this is gonna lag for a second because Age of Wonders hates that. Okay, so I've tiered the factions here. Mystic tier, because I don't even know anymore. As tier, I'm going to call Oathsworn Strife. There's been a bunch of bugs fixed with them that I'm not going to go into. You can only dispel their buff, which was weird that you could. Anyway, Oathsworn Strife is just really, 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 really strong. I don't know. I don't really have much else to say about that. Okay. A tier is Feudal, both. I think they're just really strong. I don't think they're overpowered or anything like that. I think Oathsworn Strife is like probably overpowered, but I think A tier factions are like fine. Feudal is just very solid. It's like a brick. Feudal's just a brick. It's a wall. Oathsworn Righteousness, it's just, once again, it's like a brick. They are nerfed a good bit, and maybe I should put them a bit lower, but we'll see. High is just solid. High is just one of those factions where it's just like, they just do everything good in the early game, and that just lets them snowball. Like, they just do everything good, okay? And then Glacial Mammoth, they're probably the trickiest faction to play at A tier, but I really do think that Glacial Mammoth is A tier. For B tier, I'm gonna go Industrious, because, like, holy crap, they win the map. They just can't fight battles. Barbarian, who loses the map, but wins battles, at least early game. Tunneling Spider, Underground got significantly buffed. I might be ranking Tunneling Spider too much, but not having to do Underground Adaptation, just being able to start Underground in combination with that knowledge per tile does make them rather interesting. But they are very prone to getting RNG'd out of the game. It's pretty obvious with Tunneling Spider. You can kind of just look around the map. If you have bad map gen, it's like, don't quit, right? Don't like just instantly rage, but like also you can kind of tell you're not going to have a good game. Stormcrow, it's got that grass walk, which is outrageously useful, and its boon is just really strong. And yeah, like once Stormcrow starts proccing their boons, you'll notice the enemy army just goes like, they just get like Thanos snapped, right? And then Oathsworn Harmony, they're still Oathsworn, so like they're still good, but like they're the weakest by far. And C tier, Reaver, yeah. Primal, unless I otherwise noted them. And then in D tier, we have Dark, because they got Warlocks. Honestly, if Dark didn't have Warlocks, I'd put them in F tier. Like, they can win. I definitely think like any faction here can win, but you get the idea, right? Okay, so thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, everybody. As always, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Make sure to like, subscribe if you made it to 2 hours of this video, which I really didn't intend to do. But thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.